Imagine the moment a drone's light suddenly shines deep into the wreck of the Titanic and immediately discovers something is moving between the 113 years of rotting metal. The depth of nearly 4,000 meters is absolutely silent, but the camera caught a faint small movement, but enough to make the experts pause the entire mission. The image transmitted to the control station shows that something is not dead in the ship that seemed to lie forever. Follow the journey inside the mysterious place that has just been revealed. The pressure at nearly 14,000 feet compresses everything in a way that cannot be replicated anywhere on Earth. The surrounding temperature is always below freezing, and natural light is completely absent. In this space, the Nereus X drone begins its journey toward the Titanic's hull, which used to be the legendary ship's A-deck. As they approach the main structure, powerful lights hit the rotting metal, causing the surface to reflect off patches of light. The once spacious area was now reduced to a narrow gap, the entire entrance deformed by rust and oxidation. This was what researchers called the doors of death, because of the danger of approaching. The drone navigates using a multi-axis propulsion system, maintaining stability against sudden changes in ocean currents. Sensors constantly warn of mud and debris falling from the ceiling, creating suspended particles that reduce visibility. Even a slight impact could cause loss of control in a high-pressure environment. The 8K camera revealed the details inside the dark space as it moved through the main gap. The Titanic's grand staircase railing had collapsed into twisted steel, forming a layer of rubble that showed more than a century of decay. The debris spread across the depths of the hold, marking the long breakdown of the structure. Drones recorded scattered metal fragments with sharp chipped edges. Several steel plates were bent into irregular forms, showing the intense stress from the 1912 impact and the slow corrosion that followed. Each crack on the surface reflected how the ship continued to weaken. Farther down the collapsed corridor, the drone detected a small object resting against a wall. It was an Ingersoll, the railroad pocket watch. Sea scum covered the glass, though the minute and second hands remained visible, frozen near the time the ship sank. Attention increased as the camera zoomed in on the detail of the second hand. In the cold water, the slight movement of the ocean currents made the hand vibrate rhythmically, giving the impression that time was still passing inside the hold. This was a moment the control team considered rare because the object was so intact compared to the harsh conditions. The drone continued to move deeper, avoiding the rubble with its AI guidance. Each radar scan revealed unstable areas where some steel bars held only a thin layer of rust. The mission had almost lost its equipment here when a sudden churning of muddy bottoms obscured the signal and forced them to backtrack to regain visibility. When the light shines on the remaining ceiling dents, appear as if the metal has been pulled down by a powerful compression force over decades. The long streaks show the effects of cold currents moving steadily through the hull, continually eroding the structure and reducing the thickness of the steel. This remnant perfectly records the Titanic's shortened life on the ocean floor. Approaching the junction of the two compartments, the drone scanned the area where small pieces of debris lay piled up. There were several sections of railing as thin as paper, capable of shattering with the slightest impact. These had once been the solid parts that held the deck area together, but now were just brittle red rust under the water pressure. In an internal report, the operations team said the area was at a high-risk level because any vibration could trigger a chain collapse. The findings there showed the hull was weakening much faster than initially thought. The safety threshold for the drone to go deeper was constantly recalculated based on minute-by-minute changes in reality. When the drone completed its survey of the entire entrance area, the images revealed that the interior space had been completely transformed from historical descriptions. Many important structures were only faintly visible, eroded, and constantly reshaped by the impact of the deep-sea environment. This was the first step in establishing the actual condition of the hull. The next scene will focus on the components that have been recorded as being active within the metal itself for over a century. Signs of life. As the camera moves closer, the surface of the rusticles reveals a fibrous material, a combination of metal residue and bacterial colonies. The rust is not stationary, but curves rhythmically with the gentle currents. The sense of constant movement makes it seem as if the rust is growing organically on the hull. Inside these clumps are bacteria called Halomonas titanici, discovered in previous studies. They are capable of efficiently breaking down iron, contributing to the structural weakening of the ship. The 8K camera captures the surface of the rusticles, changing moment by moment, forming new shapes under the influence of ocean currents. The bacterial composition causes rusticles to continuously form, fall off, and regenerate. Many rust strands extend nearly 2 meters, touching the metal wall and becoming firmly attached over time. Experts say this is a sign that the Titanic is undergoing intense corrosion, constantly changing shape at the microscopic level. At some points, the camera recorded small bubbles escaping from the surface of the rusticles. These are the products of the metal decomposition process, combined with chemical reactions that take place in the absence of oxygen. The small bubbles create slight vibrations that cause the rust mass to vibrate in a steady cycle. Switching to infrared mode, the drone detected faint patches of light within the rusticles. These small temperature variations reflected biological activity within. Slight hot spots appeared here and there, indicating that the rusticles area was still undergoing a continuous process of metal decomposition. Data from sensors shows that the amount of iron lost from the hull can reach hundreds of kilograms every day. This corrosion has caused the Titanic to lose about a third of its mass since its discovery. The rate of deterioration is faster than initially estimated, creating great pressure on conservation. The camera continues to scan deeper into the main area of the corridor. A large rusticles mass with a shape reminiscent of a curled-up human body is noted. This is a product of rust buildup around structures or objects that once existed in the compartment, leading to confusion in low-light footage. This unique shape, when illuminated by strong light, reveals an irregular structure with long rust fibers extending along the body. The water flowing through it causes the entire mass to vibrate slightly, adding to the feeling of movement. This is actually just a natural reaction of organic-inorganic matter in the deep-sea environment. At some intersections between the metal walls and rusticles, the drone recorded the phenomenon of rust melting down to the floor, forming a layer of red powder. This layer adhered to the sea mud, creating a mottled orange-brown background. These details testify to the strong and continuous process of decay from the top to the bottom of the compartment. The upper steel frame had lost its strong bond due to bacterial erosion. In some places, the drone detected rusticles falling off when hit by the water current. This falling and breaking exposed larger voids, causing the hull to continue to weaken by the hour. A close-up shot shows the rust strands tightly intertwined into a soft network. As the water changes direction, the network moves as a single mass. This fluidity makes rusticles both a dramatic element and a source of uncertainty in an already fragile space. In the analysis report, the growth of rusticles was seen as an existential threat to the maintenance of the Titanic's structure. They were constantly working, corroding, and turning the metal into powder. This was the reason why in many areas only a fragile skeleton remained. Some sections of the chamber show an accumulation of rusticles around random objects, forming irregular shapes. This can be misleading when viewed from a limited angle. Detailed analysis shows that no traces of large creatures exist in this area. The drone continued to film the space behind, where the rusticles formed thick patches. As the light swept across the shadows, created a sense of constant movement. Although purely optical, This scene still contributed to the footage's attention, especially when the environment was completely still. Traces directly related to humans began to appear more clearly, and recorded structures that gave the impression of a body shape were still left under the mud. Human-shaped traces. The turkey red carpet area deep in the hold appeared under the drone lights, its color still retaining a clear red hue. The chemical composition of this carpet prevented it from fading completely after more than a century at the bottom of the cold sea. The bright surface contrasted sharply with the surrounding black mud. Nearby, the drone captured a pair of children's shoes placed beside a small suitcase. A thin layer of sea mud covered the soles, though the overall form remained clear. Their neat placement indicated limited disturbance from currents in this confined space over the long period of time. The suitcase had only its hard frame left, as the outer fabric had fully disintegrated. The seams and small pieces of metal still clinging to the edges indicated that its original structure was sturdy. Combined with the children's shoes, it created a familiar archaeological image that carried a more original trace in this environment. As the drone moved deeper into the E-deck corridor, the camera captured a human-sized figure lying face-up on the floor. Mud covering its legs and torso created contours that made it resemble a fully intact body. The depth of the shadow added clarity to the figure. On the arm, the light revealed a silver bracelet still clinging to rotted fabric. The metal was tarnished, though its circular shape remained visible. It was one of the few personal items that retained its form after long exposure to the deep-sea environment. As the drone slowed down for a close-up, the arm shook slightly. The movement gave the impression of a body shifting in complete stillness. The next camera angle showed the cause of the vibration under the fabric. A nearly meter-long hagfish emerged from the sleeve. The species lives in sea mud and forages in hidden cavities. Its motion made the rotten fabric tremble, creating the illusion of a moving limb. This is a common occurrence in areas containing decomposing materials. Beneath nearby mud, the drone recorded fragments of clothing, stained dark gray by years of sediment. The fibers contained tannins that helped them survive longer than human bones, which dissolved quickly in deep water. This explained why human shapes remained, though no biological structures survived. Items such as teacups, wooden combs, and small personal belongings were scattered throughout the area, preserved by stable pressure and low oxygen. These objects contributed to reconstructing life in the third-class cabin and reflected the stratification of ticket classes. Near the bulkhead, the mud floor formed gentle ripples around humanoid depressions. These no longer contained biological material, though their outlines preserved the distribution of bodies once lying there. Soft tissue had disintegrated, while clothing and nearby objects settled back into shape over time. The drone's light scanned dark corners where objects had piled up naturally. Some pieces were coated in rust and blended into the floor. One cluster resembled a human head until closer inspection revealed rotten steel covered in vertical streaks of rust. Further in, long tracks marked the floor as if someone had leaned against a wall. The mud had shifted along the contours of the original object, and gentle currents preserved the lines. Most human remains in the area were impressions made by objects' textiles and sediment shaped to resemble bodies. No intact bones or tissues remained, creating a layered picture of an absence formed by deep-sea decomposition. These images opened another part of the survey where a mysterious object was recorded in the hold. Secrets in the deepest cargo holder. The Titanic's second cargo hold sat in the forward section of the hull, where seawater had long filled every corner. As the drone approached, its light was swallowed by the deep shadows, leaving only faint reflections on the decaying metal. The floor of the hold was blanketed by a thick layer of mud that created an opaque surface and concealed many objects beneath it. As the drone swept its light across the chamber, hidden shapes emerged gradually from the darkness. Fragments of wooden cargo crates had broken down into soft, crumbling pieces scattered across the mud. Steel plates lining the compartment were eaten thin by corrosion, some reduced to sheets as fragile as paper. The drone maintained a careful distance to avoid disturbing loose debris that could destabilize its position in the confined space. Moving toward the center, the drone's sensors detected a tall structure rising from the mud. A metal cylinder nearly 2 meters high took form under the light, its mottled surface worn, but its silhouette intact. The sharp contrast between the cylinder and surrounding debris suggested that it had survived the deep-sea conditions far better than the remains of the ship. Symbols etched into the surface became visible when the drone drew nearer. Although coated in rust, several sequences of letters and numbers could still be read. Their engineering style did not match any of the Titanic's known blueprints or surviving manufacturing records. The smoothness and seamless construction of the metal hinted that the cylinder belonged to a different technical standard. Surface scans revealed that the metal retained notable hardness with minimal structural breakdown. This distinguished it from other artifacts in the same area, many of which had deteriorated severely after more than a century underwater. The integrity of the cylinder placed it firmly outside the pattern of decay found elsewhere in the hold. Switching to deep sonar mode, the drone mapped its internal structure. Reflected pulses indicated a partially hollow interior, along with irregular pockets suggesting a core or specialized chamber. The echo patterns resembled those produced by mechanical devices, reinforcing the impression that the object had a functional purpose. When the drone activated its low-frequency receiver, it detected a faint pulse emitted at intervals of approximately 17 seconds. The frequency fell within the extremely low range, often associated with long-distance propagation through water. The source originated from the cylinder itself, indicating a physical or chemical process still active within the metal housing. The research team considered the possibility of an ongoing chemical reaction, creating periodic vibrations. Residual charge from a decayed battery or a slow internal process could generate a stable ULF signal with a constant rhythm. The available data did not offer a definitive explanation, but the persistence of the pulse confirmed that the interior had not reached complete dormancy. As the drone scanned the surrounding mud, it noticed shallow depressions radiating from the cylinder. The pattern suggested that heavy cargo containers once occupied the area and may have been secured around the object. Faint grooves hinted that multiple crates had been arranged tightly before the sinking. In the far corner of the compartment, the drone's light fell upon a safe, whose hinges had snapped long ago. The thick steel body still held its shape, matching archival notes that placed valuable cargo in this precise location. The interior was empty, filled only with packed mud. Nearby, several bent steel fragments indicated a violent impact during the sinking. Water forced into the hold likely swept away the safe's contents as the structure tore open, leaving only the current void behind. A scan of the overhead revealed beams thicker than those in surrounding sections of the ship. Their sturdier construction suggested reinforcement for cargo of unusual weight or importance. Historical discussions had mentioned undeclared shipments stored in this compartment during the final voyage. Close-range visuals captured thin metal wires wrapped loosely around the cylinder. They had decayed almost entirely, though the remaining marks suggested they once served as stabilizing restraints during transport. Pulling back for a wide view, the drone recorded the stark contrast between the cylinder and the collapsing remains of the hold. Its anomalous durability and distinct construction raised the possibility that it came from a separate origin or was produced from an alloy uncommon at the time. The final minutes of the survey documented the continued emission of ULF pulses. Even with low intensity, the steady frequency indicated an internal process still unfolding. This positioned the object as a priority for future exploration. New footage from the drone reinforced that the Titanic was not a static ruin. It was a structure undergoing constant transformation under the influence of deep-sea chemistry, microbial activity, and other forces still not fully understood. Rust formations preserved human traces, and unexplained metal artifacts added new layers to a site already defined by mystery. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next updates on what the dive device will find on its return to the Titanic.